welcome once again to this wonderful and fascinating seminar. I can see that a lot of participants are now joining in, and all those who've joined a bit late, welcome once again to this seminar being co-hosted by Delhi Management Association and People Sculptors. My name is Siddharth Tuli. I have been in the corporate world for about 25 years. And then I took a sannyas from my corporate life and I started my own organization, which helps people and teams realize their full potential. Our forte is essentially in three areas, which is organization development, and we're doing a lot of work in change management. And the second one is behavioral facilitation and the leadership coaching. And I've worked with a host of organizations like Unilever, Reckitt Benckiser, Punch Lloyd, Heidelberg Cement. I've done my certification in leadership coaching as well as organizational development from NTL USA. All right, let's begin the webinar. The question I'm trying to pose to this eminent audience is that, are organizations more likely to succeed if they adopt good management practices? Now, the answer seems very obvious. Yes, of course. But the reality of the organization is that poor management is rampant. And you won't believe it, most leaders of poorly managed organizations are unaware of the deficiencies. And this has been revealed in a well-researched international study. It's available on the net, and you can go through in more depth, and which has shown that if owners, promoters, top leaders are introduced systematically to good management practices like setting targets, performance management, management of talent, and managing change, then the performance of their organizations improved measurably and dramatically. A call for better management may not seem like a cutting-edge idea, but looking at the potential benefits in terms of performance and profitability, it may just come about to be a radical one. So what are we going to discuss today? These 5-6 things. First, a brief introduction to the concept of competent management. Okay, and then what is the financial return on good management? Very often we measure that what will the organization gain. So we will spend a little time understanding the return on good management. And the third question is, what are these core management processes? Okay, so I have listed down 4 or 5 core management processes, which we will talk in detail, and we will provide an overview of each of these elements. And should you decide to take DMA and People Sculptors, we will also talk very briefly about our methodology and how do we add value. So to begin with, let's look at the myth versus reality. Organizations need competent management just as much as they need strategic brilliance. But however, there are a lot of myths associated with this. The first myth is that organizations cannot compete on better management processes like setting targets and performance management. The reality is very different. And I'm going to show you some statistics which say that firms with strong managerial processes have better productivity, profitability, and growth. We'll just look at some of these statistics. The second myth is that business strategy is more critical than management processes. Okay, but again, the reality is that operational excellence is a crucial component to business strategy. If a firm cannot get its operational basics right, it doesn't matter how brilliant its strategy is. Okay, so these two need to go hand in hand, and core management practices established thoughtfully can go a long way towards plugging the execution gap and ensuring that the strategy gets the best chance to succeed. What's the third myth? The third myth is that the long-established business develops its own set of management practices. Again, the reality here is very different, where where we are saying that achieving managerial competence requires effort and requires investment in people and processes. It doesn't happen automatically. Okay, you need to have a concerted efforts towards building it. And last myth is that managers can objectively assess how well their their firms are run. The reality is very different again. Managers in reality are unable to judge how well their firms are able to run. Okay, this is a bias very often that people have. When you ask people in performance management and in target, when you're doing the performance appraisal, to do their self-assessment, very often we notice that that people overrate themselves, and they tend to rate themselves more than the average. And this bias is very, very obvious in students. If you ask students, 70% of them, they say they are above average. 90% of university lecturers, university teachers say they are better than the average. And this study showed that the perceived understanding of management competence and the actual management competence, both of these did not have much of a correlation, which means that people said that we are high on managerial competence, but actually when the managerial competence was measured, it was found out that the actual management competence is far lower than the perceived managerial competence. So what are we saying? What we are saying is that effective management processes are highly correlated with measures of strategic success. We are also saying that differences in process quality persist over a period of time. They raise an entry barrier for other firms to come in, and there is little evidence that these processes can be replicated. That means that if you are practicing good management practices, if you are practicing competent management practices, you will raise the bar, you will raise the entry barrier for other competitors, and you will become more competitive. Let's take a look at the return. This is a statistics which I have borrowed, or I'm quoting from Harvard Business Review. The article is called "Does Management Really Work?" And by these very eminent authors. And Rafaela Sadun has done phenomenal work on the measurement of competent management practices. And they are saying that there is a very high return on good management. Okay. A 1 point increment on a 5-point scale on management related to almost a quarter increase, 23% increase in productivity, a 14% increase in market capitalization of those firms, and a marginal increase in the annual sales growth. These statistics are very heartening, because then they give you a return on investment on competent management practices. What are some of these core management processes that we are talking about? The first one is clearly target setting, which is connection to the strategy. The first step towards any management process is goal setting or target setting. And how do you translate the organizational strategy into an executable strategy? So this is the bridge which connects the execution with the operation in the organization. The second one is performance management. How do we measure whether we have been successful or not? Actual versus target, and then evaluation of results. Did we achieve what we set out to do? And then talk about talent. The quality of human capital has a big role to play in the ultimate sustainability of the organization in terms of even financial performance. And I will talk in detail about this, various elements of talent development and high talent identification. And lastly, how do we manage all this? How do we manage this change? If let's say we do manage this change, if we manage to put these processes right, how do we manage change in the organization? This is a huge area, and we have deep expertise in terms of managing change. This is an area which we ignore. We believe that change happens automatically, but in a little while I'll show how important it is to put all these things together. So I'll now take a pause. And check out with the people here if they would like to give a score. You can put the score on the chat box on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is the lowest and 10 is the highest, what kind of score would you give to your organization? And if you can write a small line, a few words, and what is the biggest scope of improvement in your organization? Okay, I'll just pause. I'll try and see if I can unmute you, but please use the chat box to write your score and to write a few words about your biggest scope of improvement. I have unmuted you. In case you are more comfortable speaking out, then I'm fine with that as well. I think this setting will not allow me. Anyway, can you please put in the chat box your responses? All right. And please do mention this. Please do mention it to everyone. Okay, whenever you send a chat message, just change the setting to everyone. Like, take a look at some of your scores and reasons. All right. Very good, Ullas. I can rate the last organization I worked for. I would rate core management process at 8. Wow, wonderful. And what is Ullas? What is the biggest scope of improvement in that organization? Thank you very much for your response. Anybody else? All right. 8 is good. 8 is very good, Manju. 8 is very good. I was in people management. So Ullas, when you say people management, I would assume that you're talking about talent management, and we'll talk about it. What about you, Manju? Where would the scope be in terms of the biggest increase for you? Okay, so in your experience, some of your organizations that you have worked with, what kind of rating would you give? And if you want to speak, you could unmute yourself. If anybody wants to have a word, then they can unmute themselves. Okay, we are HR consultants. Most of the clients follow the. What is the market practice, Manju? Can you unmute yourself and speak out? Manju, could you unmute yourself? Hello? Could you unmute yourself, please? No, you will have to toggle that.
Hi.
Yeah, Manju, we can hear you.
Hi, Siddharth. How are you?
I'm good.
Okay, Siddharth, I am also good. Siddharth, actually, we are HR consultant, and we are handling the different clients, and we are handling the HR back operation work like payroll, compliances, and the other HR activities. So most of the clients are using the market practice, like for the increase and the appraisals. So what exactly you are looking for? What exactly you want to reply on that?
So look, I'm just taking a quick poll here, okay?
Yeah.
My hypothesis is that adoption of good management practices, and I listed them out: target setting, performance measurement, talent management, change management, okay? So, and performance management. These are some of the basic core management practices. Research has shown that if you do that, you tend to become more competitive. You are becoming more productive. So, in your experience, in my experience, many big organizations also
Not
lack.
able to hear you, Siddharth.
You're not able to hear me?
Yeah.
Are you getting me now?
Yes.
Okay. So in my experience, even large organizations, I won't score more than 6. Okay. I don't want to name them, but even large organizations, I won't rate more than 6, 6.5. From a more reputed organization. So I see a huge scope in terms of setting objectives, in terms of managing performance, in terms of giving feedback, in terms of developing people. Okay. Maybe I'm a bit strict in my rating, but I see a huge scope of improvement in the entire block of performance management and talent management. And for change management, the least said, the better.
Okay. Okay. Understood.
Okay. Anybody else wants to unmute themselves and speak before I move on and go ahead with the rest of the presentation? I'll take one more break for participants to come in. But anybody else wants to speak out, they can unmute themselves. And if you're all done, then please go back and mute yourself, because then the echo will come. Is there anybody else who wants to speak out? Okay. So I'm going to mute all of you. Okay. So that. All right. Let's go ahead and so the first process, as I said, was target setting. Okay. And Einstein famously said, if you wish to be happy, tie your life with a goal. Okay. So why goals matter? Why do goals matter? Okay. Goals are very crucial to personal and professional success. And goals are normally associated with a plan. A goal without a plan is just a dream. For example, the New Year resolutions: I will reduce weight by 5 kilos. I'll start going to the gym. And then you realize that January in a city like Delhi is a very cold month, and you would do it for a few days, and then lethargy, laziness, or whatever you may call it, may set in. So the goals without a plan serve no good, and but goals are crucial for personal and professional success. Goal setting is the first step to translate the organizational strategy to concrete achievements in terms of execution. So if we have a strategic agenda, by setting goals, we convert that strategic agenda to business goals. For example, in a manufacturing organization, the strategic agenda would be that we want to be we want to be known as an organization with the best safety records. We want to be a safe organization. So you will translate that strategic agenda to a business goal and say that my objective as a business, this department objective, is to reduce workplace accidents. And then you would go on to further translate it to teams and individual objectives in terms of KPI. And here a KPI would be to train employees on the proper use of equipment, or regular inspection of the workshop, and then you can attach a metric to it in terms of the man days of training, or the compliance score in terms of the inspection. So this helps you translate your organizational vision into organizational goals, into business goals, into team, and then individual goals. And ultimately you're seeking alignment of individual with the organizational goal, because if you don't do that, then you're working at cross purposes. What you need is the various departments need to support each other in terms of achieving the organizational vision and goals. And then you need to decide you need to prioritize. Sometimes organizations give a weightage to their goals because one goal may be more important in terms of adding value to the organization compared to another goal. A goal of having a growth strategy for an organization, startups like Uber or Ola, may be more important than seeking profit. And then goals need to be balanced. They need to be few. Okay, they need to be few. You can't have 10 goals. At best 5. The ideal number is 3 to 5. And then let's look at the second component of the management processes, which is the performance measurement. Here we are saying is that performance measurement is the process of gathering data to see whether an organization's business results are meeting operational and strategic goals. So what we are trying to say, in my last example, man days of training in terms of KPI and target, we are trying to see whether how far are we from actual versus target. If we have achieved X number of training man days and the target was Y, is there a gap, and why is there a gap? So you analyze whether we are going. And having done all of this, the time is then ripe for you to strike a performance conversation. And this, to my mind, is one of the most difficult aspects of performance measurement. I sometimes devote a whole day on giving and receiving feedback, or at least half a day session in a performance appraisal workshop on just giving and receiving feedback. You may set objectives, but if you are unable to give constructive feedback to your people, not with the spirit of vengeance, but in a spirit of development, then that will help you, because your ultimate objective is to develop your team, is to develop your people. The ultimate objective is not to find faults. So giving and receiving feedback, more important, giving feedback is an art, and people normally talk about personalities. You are very lazy, you don't work hard enough, but don't substantiate it with data. I don't have time to go in this. This is a session where I'm just going on an overview, but I'm saying a lot of training needs to be given to the managers in terms of giving feedback, and then to people in terms of receiving. And then having done that, you need to link the performance appraisal with the rewards and recognition. And here again, it's a huge playground. Some organizations have sharp differentiation between average and superlative performance. Other organizations have much less differentiation between outstanding and average. But it depends upon your organization. It depends upon who you are. And I won't want to comment here on what should be that. But you do need to link your rewards, your recognition, to your performance appraisal, to the achievement of the objectives, not only what was achieved, but how was achieved. And lastly, an organization needs to know how to manage poor performance. What are the reasons why people are not performing? Go dive deep into it and weed out ruthlessly at the end of the day people who are not performing adequately. So that's the second leg of it. The third one is more to do with evaluation of the results. Okay, in the previous slide, we discussed gathering data about individual performance vis-a-vis actual. Now here it is a macro, it's a accumulation of all the objectives as an organization. How are we as an organization doing? Do we need to shift some timelines? Are we achieving the goals that we set out to do? And are those goals realizing the organizational strategy or creating organizational value? What has been the impact of the initiatives that we have taken, and then ultimately capturing the lessons? For example, if everybody achieved their objectives, then were we too lax? Were our objectives too easy to achieve? So next time maybe we set more tough targets. The next one is very critical, which is to do with talent management. In my experience, all organizations have problems, and at the root of most of these problems are people. How to manage them, whom to hire, whom to fire, whom to promote, how to motivate, develop, and retain people is the ambit of talent management. Okay, there is a science to understanding and managing people, yet most organizations play it by the ear. Human capital has become the fundamental source of competitive advantage, and companies that manage it carefully, like they manage their financial capital, perform much better than the rest. Okay, it starts with employee engagement, which is the psychological, rational, and emotional connect with the people, and the return on investment or on engagement is very well documented. I may not be able to speak much about it, but more engaged the organization, the better is the performance of the organization, and these are today well documented research studies which have shown that. That brings me to the next point: is that in terms of the output or the contribution, it is very lopsided. The majority of the organization results come from a minority of the people. 80% of organization success is contributed by 20% of the people. You need to understand and know who these people are. Who are my hypos? Because they are creating the maximum value in the organization. And having done that, then you need to base your entire leadership development on that strategy. And that brings me to the next component of talent management, which is talent development. There's a very famous Chinese saying which says that if you want 1 year of prosperity, grow grains. If you want 10 years of prosperity, grow trees. If you need 100 years of prosperity, grow your people. So investment in your people never goes waste, and you need to work towards building organizational capability. And if you have done all that, then you have all the pieces in place to develop a leadership pipeline and complete your succession planning. And that brings me to the last of the management processes, which is change management. Okay, introducing and implementing the above 4 processes that I just discussed is nothing short of organizational transformation. But do not assume that all these changes would be accepted and the organization would instantly move to the next level. There is an immense responsibility on the leadership team to show that these changes are accepted by them. As OD experts, as organizational development experts, it has been our experience that managing the people side of any change is quite often ignored. I'm doing a digital transformation. Now, people will introduce SAP. If you're a legacy system and you're introducing an SAP system, people will do that. But people will forget to carry people along so that their commitment is with the new change. And as with any other change, this is important to be introduced very systematically and in a structured manner. Here, particularly in India, I see a lot of work happening in change management in US and in Canada and parts of Europe. But when I look back in India, I think people take it by granted that, we would get people along, but that's not the true reality. And this is a model called the ACT, activate the change, creating a plan and transitioning the change. Activating the change means clarifying and aligning the vision with the goals. A clear vision helps people understand the purpose and advantages of the change effort. For example, enhancing gross margins by relocating your manufacturing plants from metros to greenfield areas, maybe a vision of the organization. And then you need to determine the readiness of the people. It's a thermometer. It's a gauge to know how much people are in tune with the change that you're doing. And Philip Kotler is the guru of change management, is very fond of using this term called establishing a sense of urgency. And he keeps on saying that you need to create a vacuum towards change so that people are sucked on into the kind of change that we want to do. So the change management team needs to sometimes hype the change in order for the change to happen. And lastly, you need to have a well-established, thought-through communication plan, whether it is posters, whether it is videos, whether it is town hall meetings or emails. You need to have a good communication plan right from start to end. And then you need to, in the second phase of creating a plan, you need to gather and analyze the data. How is the change readiness moving? How is the stakeholders' mood changing with the progress of the change effort? And involving everybody in the change, and managing resistance to change by understanding what issues people may have, by understanding what doubts they may have, by addressing some of the issues that they raise. You need to manage the resistance. And lastly is the aspect of transitioning the change, where you design the implementation, where you fix responsibility, you fix the accountability with people, you consult people, you inform people. So developing the whole RASI matrix, and then making the change stick, and evaluating the effort in terms of the impact, in terms of the process that you followed, in terms of the quality of leadership. Did leadership deliver the change effort or no? For example, in many organizations that I am doing change management, I find that change is more managed than led. Whereas the reality is that change management needs to be led more than to be managed. So these kind of conclusions you can come. So that brings me to an end to all the processes. I'll just take a few more minutes before I open it to question and answers, is talking about our methodology of implementation. I'll be very brief. This is the methodology that we do. We first assess the organization. We want to get to know what the organization is with the stakeholders. We try and diagnose the organization in terms of their management practices, and these are the 4 management practices. Having diagnosed the organization, we present these findings back to the leadership team, discuss points of agreement and disagreement. We incorporate the leadership feedback and then build a plan which has got milestones, which has got timelines, talks about the resources, talks about the final deliverables. And then we get on to the implementation, where we help the organization. Because we want the organization leaders to drive this process. We are only facilitators. So we have a kickoff workshop with the meeting. We develop a RASI matrix, which is a responsibility, accountability, consulted, informed kind of a matrix. We review the project plan, and we set up clear objectives, KPIs with targets for measuring progress. And then ultimately, of course, you need to manage whether what you set out to achieve has really been achieved or not. So this is our approach to this. How do we add value? We are organizational development experts. We are experienced. We have deep experience in implementing management practices. We have well-established framework, templates. See, the point I want you to understand is this, that this requires a comprehensive, structured, committed effort. Okay, just one person wanting to do it, or one HR department wanting to do it, it will not happen. You need to involve the top management. You need to carry the people along with this change, and you need all the support in terms of the process and templates to get to know whether what you are doing is delivering the result that you want to do. And then we kind of stand by and allow you not to derail the process. And we also are very courageous. We're not afraid of telling you the truth. All right, so let's winding up. I'm just showing you a picture of Mona Lisa, which is a masterpiece. All I'm saying is that if you want to create a masterpiece of an organization, it has to be done consistently over a period of time. It cannot happen in a jiffy. It needs consistent hard work. Blood, sweat, and tears are required to get this done. It won't come by wishful thinking. And this is my last slide, where if you want to get in touch with us, these are the particulars. I don't know if Mr. Rajan Pandey is here in the webinar, but these are the contacts. When I send you the recording, you would have them. I am on LinkedIn, and so would be Rajan. And these are my mobile numbers and this. So should anyone want to contact us, you're more than welcome. It's just about 40 minutes that we did, and as per my schedule, I'm now opening it up for discussion. And a lot of you would have a points of view on, whether this makes sense and what has been there. More interestingly, if you have questions, you ask me. But I would even welcome people to share their experience with us. So I'm trying to unmute all of you, and if anybody wants to speak, they can unmute their mic and talk. This is a good opportunity to share and discuss what I've been talking for a long time. Now really it's your time to speak. Go ahead. Yeah, Ulas, I can see that you have unmuted your voice. What is it that you want to say?
Okay, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I'm able to hear.
Okay, my question, Siddharth, is that what do you think about the manipulation of data in organizations? Now, obviously, it is a good practice to have the right kind of objectives and performance management. But
Can you say, Ulas, be a bit loud?
okay, are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, what is your experience about the manipulation of data within the organizations? For example, you can have performance, you can set targets, you can have performance evaluation, but what I have seen is a lot of people actually manipulate the data which goes behind all of this. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, Ulas, I went to a very large organization, okay? I went to a very, very large, renowned company in Mumbai to give a session on performance management, okay? And the MD was sitting and the report, and the HR department was kind of leading this discussion or facilitating. And there came a point when they started showing the objectives and they're talking about their assessment, okay? And many people got up and said that, but at the end of the day, you are only using judgment. You're only using judgment, okay? You are not collecting the right data. So you're right that unless Ulas, the whole basis of this is that if the performance management should be fair, consistent, and transparent. If people lose faith in the fairness of your process, if you start manipulating data, then it is better not to have a system than to have a crooked system at all.
Yeah. So my only comment here, Siddharth, is that if an organization is growing very, very fast, then actually it may not be feasible to have right number data. I mean, has been my experience.
Sorry, if the organization is doing?
If the organization is growing very fast,
yeah.
If the organization is growing very fast,
yeah,
then it may not always be feasible to have the right kind of data collected.
Well, I don't know if anybody in the group wants to, the participants want to talk about it, they are welcome. But Ulas, I do not know from where you are coming that, the problem with the fast growing organization is, and that can be, become a bottleneck for them, is that they are not good at setting up processes as they go along, Yes. And then come a stage where everything is chaos, everything becomes chaotic. They do not know what to do. So it makes sense even for very fast growing organizations to bring in people who can help and set them process. And today technology helps you with analyzing the data. I mean, that's not a problem at all. It only needs a bit of management bandwidth right from the foundations of the organization. So yeah, you're right. In reality, many fast-growing organizations ignore these processes, and that's why they don't have the data. But that's exactly my point, that a fast-growing organization needs to settle the processes much more efficiently than a slow-growing organization, because ultimately, this will become their nemesis. Okay, anybody else wants to contribute or add to this question or contribute a response to this or any other point they want to take? Thank you very much, Ulas. That was a great question. Is there anybody else? Manju, anything else you want to talk about? You have to unmute yourself.
No, Siddharth. Basically, I have one question only. Then how you retain your employees?
Sorry?
How you retain your employees? It's a very big question for me right now. So I know it's very...
So let's ask somebody, let's ask Rajan. Rajan is here. I'm glad Rajan is here. So Rajan, what do you want to respond? What is your experience? What works for retention of people? Rajan, are you there?
I don't think so.
He's there. But he's not answering. Look, anybody, Ulas, you want to answer that question?
I think that will depend on many factors. One of them is the size of the organization. Like for smaller organizations, there are different factors which work. Basically, a sense of belonging, being like a family kind of a culture, atmosphere, informal culture. But for large organizations, I think it's about, can you show them a growth path, you know, and are you actually worried about each employee, you know? Are you constantly looking at what the employee needs are? The engagement with the employees, essentially.
Okay, what kind of engagement you're talking about, like trainings and all?
Yeah, training is one definitely, but you know, see, and training also not, you know, normal training. It's basically training to enhance your competency, you know, to develop you
Okay,
as a leader. Those
okay,
kinds of training.
okay.
I mean, this is one aspect. I mean, not everything, but that is.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I want to add. I want to add to what Ullas is saying. Daniel Drive has put this very beautifully, and Swati, I'll come to you in a moment. Okay, I've seen your chat message, so give me a minute. What I'm saying is that there are three things: autonomy, purpose, and mastery. If you give people freedom to work on what they are working, okay, if you connect them to a sense of purpose, not only their internal sense of purpose, but with the organization, we are helping make the nation cleaner. Okay, for example, could be a sense of purpose, and then mastery, allowing people to become the best at what they are. This is a great tool for engaging people and retaining people. The more higher, Manju, remember, the higher the engagement, the higher the retention, and the higher their contribution to a performance. So,
Okay.
as Ullas said, a lot of factors go into this, but I find this framework suggested by Daniel Pink of mastery, purpose, and autonomy to be a great framework to remember. And if you can give your people that, they would be more engaged. So, Swati, would you unmute yourself and talk about this a little bit
Thanks,
more?
Ullas. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, Swati, unmute yourself, please. Swati has mentioned. Swati, can you unmute yourself? There is. Are you able to do that? Okay, let me read out what she's saying. She's saying, with reference to your question regarding area of improvement, I think change management and talent management are most important. But I think these areas leads HR executives to face such negative reaction from employees. How can we handle such reaction or behavior? Swati, need to elaborate. Do you need some help to unmute? Let me unmute. I've unmuted you. I can't unmute for whatever reason. I have unmuted unmute all. So, Swati, can you unmute yourself? Okay, let me try and, can you hear me? What she's saying? Okay. Look, the aspect of change, Swati, the aspect of change is a very difficult one. Okay. Change needs to start with a sense of urgency. If let's say, you doesn't matter. Okay. And that has to be driven by the leadership. You need to create a sense of urgency. Why is it that we want to have more talent? Okay, why is it that we need to become more responsive to customer needs, or we becoming a more customer-oriented organization? So that needs to start with the vision statement, a sense of urgency, and then it can happen. Don't do a knee-jerk reaction, but think it through. And in terms of talent management, I hope what you mean to say is differentiation. Now, my point is that if you are fair, and that brings me to Ullas's point, if you are fair and consistent and transparent, then I did an assessment center with my people in my last organization. And we then at the end of the assessment center told people what were their strengths, what were their weaknesses, and why they were not being selected. And this is the reason, because you have been in this 2-day assessment center. And when they came out, they said, thank you. We thought the process was very fair. We now understand where we lack, and we'll try and work and come back to you. So very often in terms of talent management, when you promote one person with respect to other, when you give a person higher increment compared to other, the whole issue gets embroiled in transparency, gets embroiled in fairness. That's why when I went to that organization, I asked them that you are using your judgment to give a rating to a person. You don't have data. If you only had data, then you would have proved quantitatively and qualitatively to the individual that this is where he lacks or she lacks. So that's my brief response to your beautiful question. Anybody else if they want to add to this, they're welcome. And otherwise, I have said what I needed to say.
Yeah, only thing I would like to add, Siddharth, is that in my observation, a lot of people are not prepared to give negative feedback to their subordinates.
Yeah,
exactly. I am with you, Ulas, in this point.
Yes. See, Ulas, the point is that you need to give constructive feedback. Okay, you need to. I mean, I'm a great believer in working on your strengths, but do you need to tell people if their weaknesses are becoming fatal flaws, that this is where they lack? But you need to tell them because thinking that you have the right intention of doing it, not with the intention of insulting the guy, harming the person. But if you have the right intentions and you give it properly and you give a constructive feedback which is more developmental oriented, then the people would listen to it. Okay, but if you do not know how to give feedback, then it will boomerang. We don't train people in giving feedback. Okay, what else? One last question and then we can wrap up if there is any. Is Rajan around? Rajan, do you want to say something? You have unmuted yourself now. Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a very interesting experiment. This was the first time that DMA and People Sculptors have got together. First time that People Sculptors did a webinar. First time that DMA did a webinar. I was very skeptical, but I'm quite happy with the interaction, with the results that you've got. Thank you all for your time and devoting an hour on this webinar. I will try and send you the recording, and hopefully we should try and stay connected. And you have my details, and so you have Rajan's. I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter, so you're most welcome to connect with me. And thank you very much for being such excellent participants. Thank you very much. I need to catch a flight to Bangalore. I'm doing a change management workshop tomorrow. I do a certification program on change management, and I need to catch a flight to do that. It's a 2-day program. Thank you all very much. And
thanks, Siddharth. Thanks. Siddharth, if it's possible, can you please send the PPT to us?
I will do that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.